After another massive Toronto Maple Leafs playoff collapse has their fan base wanting to go scorched earth on this roster, dominoes will definitely be falling this summer. So today we're going to take a look at the big changes we think are coming for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Hey everybody, welcome into Clearing the Benches, your one-stop shop for hockey content. If you go ahead and hit your subscribe button right now, you'll be sure to be in on all of our future videos. When you look at this team, the core four, as everyone's calling it, they are done. It is going to get blown up, and I think the changes are going to start at the top, and I think the first domino to fall is going to be the team president and alternative governor, Brendan Shanahan. He's 56 years old. They hired him way back in the day, April 11th, 2014. He's been around, and first thing he did was he fired Randy Carlyle. He brought in Mike Babcock, Lou Lamoriello, Kyle Dubas, Sheldon Keefe. He has brought in all kinds of different personalities, knowledge guys, young guys, old guys. And to me, he finally got it right when he brought in Berube as the head coach, but we'll see what happens with this roster. I just look at them overall, and I agree with what everyone's saying on the internet. Your biggest guys don't show up in the biggest games, and it's not just a here and there thing. It's consistently all the time. It's like they crap the bed when they know the chips are down, and especially if they're facing any kind of adversity. They go down 2-0, early in a game. A lot of times it seems like you can just see the wind come out of their sails. They need to change that, especially in a big market like Toronto. They want a winner. It's been forever. But when I look at who's available out there, fret not. The answer could be coming as early as next season, and it'll be a guy that Leafs fans would love. But first, let's talk about other guys on this current roster I think are gone. Obviously, Mitch Marner. I would say 99% of the people out there would agree Mitch Marner has played his last game in a Maple Leafs uniform. Look, the guy put up a point a game during his career in Toronto, but he is soft physically on the ice. He doesn't play any kind of an imposing game out there. And, from what they're saying, he could be a little bit mentally soft. They're saying, especially Berube was pretty blunt about it, and he said they just don't have it between the ears. So I was thinking he was probably talking about some of their bigger name guys. I think there were guys, when you look at the stats, it looks like they performed well. William Nylander, didn't seem like you saw much of him the last 2 or 3 games. Again, Matthews, you could just see he was so defeated, especially once they went down in Game 7. It was like they were done. Another guy that I think could be gone, and I know that the fan base has been screaming for this for a couple of years, but I think this year could be the year you see it, and that is Morgan Rielly. One thing about the guy, he played in all 82 games, 7 goals. He had 34 assists, 41 points, but he was a -8. Toronto drafted him way back in 2012, 5th overall. For that high of a draft pick, he's had a nice career, but I don't think it was worth a 5th overall pick. He makes some pretty iffy decisions in his own zone, and they often lead to turnovers that lead to, high-risk chances for the other team. He has top 50 points 3 times as a Leaf, but his play has definitely regressed the past few seasons, and I could see them possibly buying him out. Now, this next player, talk about polarizing, John Tavares. I thought he had a good year. He's a UFA. He's going to get offers. He had 74 points this year, and he was a +10. When they took away the captaincy thing and, he just had to fall amongst the ranks, I thought he handled it way better than I would have. He just kept his mouth shut, head down, and he kept working hard. He's had 103 goals in the last 3 seasons for the Leafs. That is nothing to sneeze at. He's got over 1,100 NHL points in 1,184 regular season games. He's 35 years old at the start of next season. But I think, if they decide to move on from Matthews, and they were decided to trade Matthews this offseason, and I don't think there's anything off the board in Leafs land this summer. Anything. You could tell me a guy's coming down from Mars to coach them or, whatever. I would believe you, because anything could be possible this summer in Leafs land. That is for sure. I wouldn't be surprised if they moved on from Matthews, and if it presented itself, they made Tavares the captain again. I thought he handled it smoothly. He played a really good season this year. As for Matthews, in the post-game press conference, he just looked defeated. And to be honest, he did not look like he wanted to be there. He wanted to rip that C off his chest and throw it in the trash as fast as he could. Look, the guy's been there forever. You're the number 1 overall pick. You've got a lot of pressure, especially in a place like Toronto. They want it now. And when you don't perform, if you put your socks on crooked, they're going to criticize you. So when I look at a guy like Matthews, I think the Leafs have got big time options if they decided they wanted to move on. First of all, you could call up the Islanders and you could say, hey, would you want the number 1 overall pick in return? Would you give it up for AustonMatthews? Of course, I'm sure Matthews would have to have a say in where he's going, but he's only 27 years old. He's got another 8 good years in him. And if you get him with the right guys, and it all depends on, what team he would go to and who's around him, he could really, keep putting up the numbers that he's been putting up in Toronto. Yeah, every time they make it to the playoffs, they come up short. But you got to get to the playoffs. And, when you're a team and your job is putting butts in the seats and selling jerseys, if a guy like AustonMatthews would go to, Long Island, or maybe he would go to a team like Utah, you could have a team that would really welcome him. You're going to sell a ton of jerseys with AustonMatthews on the back of it. That is for sure. So trading Matthews, maybe it would be to the Islanders. And now if you did that and you had the number 1 overall pick, now you've got all kinds of options. When I look to the future and I look at Craig Berube, they did not bring him in here just to go out with a whimper, 2 or 3 playoffs and then move on from him. This is like the nail in the coffin. They are expecting a Stanley Cup out of Craig Berube. And when I look at a guy like AustonMatthews, and you said to him, hey, would you, scratch off a couple of teams off your, no trade clause and we could move you, would you want that? I think at this point, he could probably say yes. I think he's seen it all. He had good guys around him and they couldn't get it done in Toronto. A change of scenery does a lot of guys good. And even if he would just become like a 40-goal scorer somewhere else, maybe he starts to become a facilitator as he gets older. But, there's plenty of teams out there. Utah's got the number 4 pick. I'm pretty sure Bill Armstrong would listen if you were talking about, the number 4 pick for AustonMatthews. Maybe Utah would have to throw in a prospect or 2 to sweeten it up. Maybe a draft pick, somewhere. But that's the type of team I could see, really listening about a guy like AustonMatthews. I think this offseason, Berube is going to have a say in who they're looking at in free agency. And there's a player out there, Mason McTavish. He's 23 years old. He's an RFA on the Anaheim Ducks. Now, I think Pat Verbeek, the Anaheim Ducks GM, loves him and that style of play that he brings. So I doubt he would let him just walk. But if you offer sheeted him, you never know. And I think a guy like Mason McTavish, he could be the type of guy that in 3, 4, 5 years, he's the Leafs captain. Now, as far as bringing in their next captain, when you look at this year's free agency list, Jamie Benn of the Dallas Stars is an unrestricted free agent. He's 35 years old. I think, let's say that Stars win the Cup this year, and let's say he decides not to retire and he wants to play a couple of more years. I think if a guy like Craig Berube could get in Jamie Benn's ear for a couple of minutes, I think he could convince him to come to Toronto. You could be the guy. I'll make you the captain right out of the gate, and it'll be your team, and we'll style it around your style of play. And you'd be the guy who broke the curse in Toronto, and you'd be the captain that hoisted the cup. That's some pretty sweet stuff, and that would be hard for anybody to turn down, especially if you're face to face with a guy like Craig Berube, and that's coming out of his mouth. So those are some of the big changes I think could be coming this offseason for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Let me know what you think down in the comments section. Let me know what you think about the guys I mentioned. If you think that they're going to move on from these guys, if they're going to work out deals for these guys. You know, when I look at this roster right now, you know, I feel bad for Pastrnak in Boston. He's kind of like the last pillar standing. It's like, you know, something disastrous happened and all you see are the fireplaces are left standing. That's what I see when I see the Boston Bruins right now. I think they're going to be in a funk for a couple of years. And I see a guy, you know, like Pastrnak. He's just there by himself. You know, depending on what happens, you know, you don't want William Nylander. I don't think they're going to do that because they brought Berube in. But a guy like Nylander, you know, could be looking around in a couple of weeks saying, where did everybody go? And, you know, we need name tags for all the new guys that we brought in. So, again, let me know what you think down in the comment section. If you could, hit your like button, your subscribe button. And as we always do here at Clearing the Benches, let them know you're out there.